As most fans of the series know, this year marks the 20th anniversary of the first Kingdom Hearts game. As someone who's been playing the games all along, I'm pretty excited about the announcements that are going to be made about the future of the series later this month. Though I suppose by the time this comes out, the event will have already happened, so let me know your thoughts on it. I really hope it is/was really good. As such, I wanted to finally make a video on the game. Actually, I'm making two. The other one is about me playing the game at level 1 for the first time. As of right now, I'm stuck on Ansem 3, you know, the one with all the lasers. And at this point, I really just want to be done. But for this video, rather than talking about something like characters, major things, etc., I just want to have fun bringing up the little things that always stick out to me when I play. Things like facial expressions, choice bits of dialogue, and other quirks. I've got a whole list here, and while I don't doubt I'm missing some things, I think I've at least got my favorite and most curious here. First up is the 100 Acre Wood. I have a love-hate relationship with this world. It's not fun, and it's very tedious. But if I had the power to remove it, I'd still hesitate because it's just so gosh darn wholesome. You know the meme that when you grow up, you start to relate more and more to Squidward? Well, I found that to be true, but also I find myself much more sympathetic towards Rabbit these days. As a kid, I found him to be a boring killjoy, but now I sympathize that he's trying his best to live his life, minding his own business, but everyone just shows up and trashes his property and eats his food. I feel bad that as Sora, I have to point out the honey that he's hidden away from Pooh. The 100 Acre Wood is treated as its own world, but it's pretty far removed from the plot itself. There are no Harless, and it's not like there's a woozle on the villain council. But the residents of the wood remain oblivious to the problems at large and just live their quiet lives with their much more mundane problems. You know, other than going through the psychology of knowing the inevitability that just like your friends, you two will one day disappear forever. But we're not talking about that. We're instead talking about how freaking small Piglet is. Look how giant Sora is standing next to him. I know Sora is the stand-in for Christopher Robin and Piglet is small next to him too, but there's something about seeing it from Piglet's perspective that really makes a difference. It's just so comically absurd. Speaking of comical, there's this one time I actually broke Pooh's pathfinding during the final minigame when you're gathering everybody, and ever since that's happened, I've always been nervous that it would happen again. On top of that, it seems that there was never a pose made for Tigger bouncing after his nut minigame, or one for Pooh when you yeet him off the swing. I think Tigger's is the most peculiar because while Pooh's strange but possible, the fact that Tigger can bounce without bending his knees is mildly disturbing. Putting those thoughts aside, I absolutely love the book cover for When You Finish the World. It's just freaking adorable. You don't expect Square's more complicated character aesthetic to make sense next to the much more simpler world of Winnie the Pooh, but somehow, like the Kingdom Hearts games themselves, they just work. KH1, 2, and 3 all have a different one, and while I like to own them all as a set, this one is my favorite. And lastly, when Sora goes to leave the wood for the last time, Pooh remarks,
Sora, don't forget, we shall always be here. If you'd like to visit again, that is.
I know it's supposed to be reassuring, but it actually makes me feel kind of sad. Sad in the way that Toy Story kind of makes you sad. Those toys, and in this case these characters, will indeed always be here whenever you need them. Even as you grow up and leave to do important things with your life and don't think about them for a long time. No matter what, they'll be here thinking of him. Now, Pooh and the others are not the property of Sora, but again, he is the Christopher Robin stand-in, and the fact that no other characters in the games ever see Pooh and friends, unless you count the command boards and BBS I guess,
Hooray!
makes the comparison not that outlandish. I won't be getting so elaborate with anything else, but if I had just left it at what Pooh said with no explanation, I think my reasoning would have been misunderstood. But now that I've started speaking dialogue, let's leave the 100 Acre Wood and talk about other things characters say that just stick out to me. Mostly because they're silly. Let's rapid fire through a few.
I gotta spruce this place up for the games.
You're stupid!
What?
Kyrie's inside me?
What am I doing with these imbeciles?
What do you know, you big polluter?
Actually, Donald gets a lot of funny little moments. He's just so set on dismissing most of Sora's concerns for the sake of finding the king.
I wonder if I could find Riku and Kyrie.
Of course!
Are you sure?
Who knows? But we need them to come with us to help us find the king.
Donald, maybe King Mickey's down there.
In a backwater place like that? No way. Let's move on.
Hold on, Riku and Kyrie might be down there. Let's just check it out.
Forget it. We're on an important mission.
Just land.
No.
No, he can't come.
What?
Forget it.
Oh, come on. He's my friend.
I don't care.
I wonder why. I feel this warmth inside, right here.
Ah, you're just hungry.
Hey, I'm serious.
Ooh, what do I know?
That one was for Goofy. This was the earliest sign that he was going to be the smartest half-pint out of the three.
Sorry, you lazy bum. I knew that I'd find you snoozing down here.
This one might be an odd choice, but something about calling someone a bum has always just been funny to me.
That Kokoschka's a Class A bum. A Class A bum.
I think it's because it's a word my dad used a lot, and I never really heard it anywhere else until probably these two examples.
Well, whoever you are, stop freaking me out like this. Huh? Well, where did you come from?
I don't know if this was a mistranslation of either text tone or inflection, but this is arranged so oddly as is. You're kidding me. You're flying a gummy ship, you don't know nothing about navigation gummies? Bunch of pinheads, inner space ain't no playground. And this is probably me projecting onto Sid a bit, since he hasn't a voice in this game, but this just always makes me giggle. And lastly, just almost anything Billy Zane says, but mostly this line for some reason.
To the heart-seeking freedom, this island is a prison, surrounded by water.
I don't know if anyone else feels or pictures sounds like hills and valleys, but I do a lot, and the fact that there's such an upward slope to the way he says surrounded makes it just very appealing. That probably didn't make any goddamn sense, so let's move on to something else. Most Kingdom Hearts games have what I think of as 3 types of animation. The budget-stretching type reserved for OPs and EDs, the dead fish-eyed staring lip-flapping mouths mostly used for lines that are written down text rather than spoken type, though an also little exception is any scene a Final Fantasy character is in, and the middle ground one, where it's definitely not the pre-rendered stuff found bookending the games, but characters still have to find expressions, gestures, and, blink. This is mostly for voice-acted cutscenes, but sometimes there will be voice-acted cutscenes where there's a dead-eyed character and an actually animated character, and it's weird, and I can't explain why that's a thing. The point is that when it wants to, the game can be very expressive, especially with Sora. He's finding out what's going on at the same time we do, sometimes later than us. And since there's so much going on, it's important to use body language and facial expressions to convey what he's processing to keep the game from being even more bogged down than it already is. Or, to do this. That's also a choice. But more what I'm thinking of is this cute pouty face after the Destiny Islands race. Regardless of outcome, Riku decides to be a sore loser or winner, and as their relationship currently stands, all he can do is, pout. As opposed to much later in the game when he's able to stand up to him and say,
"You're stupid!"
Another sore face is in Wonderland. The whole party is surprised that a doorknob with a face can use that face to speak. Donald and Goofy really shouldn't be surprised considering their rocket ship was built by chipmunks. I thought Sora off the hook, but he did ask Pluto if he knew where they were. Now, whether he was talking to Pluto like you might talk to a IRL dog, or whether he considered maybe he could reply, we'll never know. For all we know, dogs on the Destiny Islands talk. It's not like we ever see one. After all, he doesn't seem to be surprised that Donald and Goofy could talk. But I guess for them all, there's a fine line of believability between non-human talking characters and talking what for them would normally be inanimate objects. But it's such a great expression of curiosity. Not that Sora in Kingdom Hearts 2 doesn't emote, he does indeed, but I feel the range isn't as broad, I guess, as it is in this game. Maybe I'll decide to take back those words if I decide to make a quirk video for that game too. I don't have nearly as much to say about Riku. He spends most of the game being angry or antagonizing. But my favorite instance of this is in Monstro, where he takes part in literal kidnapping, where Geppetto begs for his son's return and Riku looks him dead in the eyes and says, "Fuck you." That part of the game. Anyway, right before that, Riku makes an appearance and decides to mock Sora with the smuggest looking face possible. Just makes you want to punch it. And that's when he kidnaps Pinocchio. Just to prove how much they prioritize his angst over anything else, look at what it's meant to be, a face of friendship and fun. It looks weird. Sora doesn't look much better, but Riku's looks like he's seen a jovial face before, but has never tried out himself, and it's costing him pain. And other than this interesting choice to zoom in on Kairi, I've got nothing for her. I mean, when you spend most of the game looking like this, there's not much to work with. I have more to say about the Queen of Hearts, how sad is that? Going back to the 3 animation types from before, the entirety of Wonderland is basically dead-eyed lip flaps, with the exception of the doorknob scene and one other sentence. For whatever reason, when Alice is on trial, they choose to pick this part to fully animate the Queen of Hearts. None of the other characters in the scene are fully animated, and she herself never gets it again. I don't know whether she had more lines and they got cut, or if there was some kind of quota to fill and that's how it turned out. It's not even a poignant statement, so the whole thing just sticks out in an odd way to me. But the static models can still provide some mild entertainment. There's always the classic "I am definitely a villain, but only the audience gets to know it" smile from Clayton, and Genie giving Aladdin the most hilarious side-eye at the prospect of being freed on Aladdin's third wish. Moments like that are not meant to be silly, but I mean... And now for the catch-all category for everything else. Did you know that Kingdom Hearts hates characters named Archimedes? It's true. If they didn't, they wouldn't have excluded both Jane's father and Merlin's grumpy-ass owl. And speaking of missing characters, where the heck is Figaro? Cleo gets to be included. What, they couldn't modify a Dalmatian puppy model? I guess they were saving the rest of their cat budget for the Pride Lands. Even if they couldn't keep Merlin's owl, I'm at least happy to see that they kept his sick dance moves. Little did we know that he was just using his break time command. Speaking of break time, you know who can't use it? Riku. And you know who also can't dress themselves? Riku. Behold! These pants! The boy is wearing assless chaps, for fuck's sake. I don't want to hear that I might have some sort of islander benefit. None of the other kids look this ridiculous, and Sora is wearing a bright red onesie. Plus his gloves. These gloves. Look at where they stop. They don't even fully cover his palms. If it were me, I'd be tugging at them constantly. Speaking of Destiny Island fashion, everyone loves to make fun of Sora's clown shoes, and to be honest, so do I. I mean, this is why he has to jump like this before he gets high jump. But have any of you ever looked at Kyrie's shoes? While the question of whether Sora's feet are that big or he's just wearing shoes several sizes too big is up for debate, Kyrie's doesn't have as much to leave to the imagination, meaning that I hope she has platform shoes on, or otherwise those will be some very unique feet. No, if she does, she does. It doesn't change anything, but I just want to spread around the burden that's been solely on Sora this whole time. Oh, and it's neat that until you defeat Guard Armor for the first time, Donald and Goofy don't say their names or Sora's when giving aid because you all haven't been introduced yet, and that's a nice touch. I know I got a little heated there towards the end, but there you have it. A celebration of the little things that help make this game the gem that it is, at least to me. I think it would be fun to do these for some of the other games as well, so let me know how that sounds. But yeah, that's going to be it for me for now, and I'll see everybody later. Bye!